This happened a few weeks ago. I'm Jake, 36, a history teacher. I thought a family reunion would help me reconnect with everyone after years in the city. I left my home, heading back to my childhood town, feeling a mix of excitement and nerves. The reunion was at my family's old farmhouse, the one filled with laughter and stories. But when I stepped inside, the air felt heavy. Smiling faces lined the walls in photographs, but something felt off. Everyone gathered that first night. I stood in the living room chatting about school and the city. As laughter broke out, I caught a whisper between my aunt and uncle in the hallway. Their eyes darted to a dusty portrait near the staircase. I felt my pulse quicken. I was curious, so I moved closer, trying to catch snippets of their conversation. They spoke about the past and the truth. I wasn't exactly sure what it all meant, but I felt a chill run down my spine. The next few days dragged on, filled with awkward small talk and uncomfortable silence. My grandmother had moments of sharp laughter that quickly turned into deep frowns. I didn't know how to approach her. My uncle often looked around nervously like he was expecting someone or something. During dinner, I caught him staring at that portrait. His expression grew darker. One afternoon, I wandered the old attic for a little escape. Dust motes floated lazily in the sunlight filtering through the cracked window. I was shifting through boxes filled with old knickknacks when I stumbled upon a family photo. It was yellowed and creased, the faces unrecognizable. I flipped it over, and names were scribbled on the back. My heart raced. Who were these people? They didn't come to the reunion. I knew my family had secrets, but this felt wrong. As I pieced together odd stories about estranged relatives, the room started to feel smaller. I felt cold, like the air had been sucked out. I talked to my cousins about it, but they dismissed my questions. That's just how family is, one said with a shrug. I felt increasingly isolated. The last night, we gathered around the fire outside. The flickering flames cast long shadows on the ground. I was still on edge, feeling the weight of questions I couldn't voice. My hand shook slightly as I held my drink, feeling the roughness of the cup. My uncle made a toast, but the words came out jumbled, like he was stalling. Then I heard it a whisper. You shouldn't have come back. I turned to ask who said that, but no one was looking at me. Their faces were blank, staring into the fire. My heart raced again. Why did I feel trapped? And then my uncle glanced at me, eyes wide. Some truths should stay buried, he warned, glancing again at the portrait hanging above the mantel. With that, an uneasy feeling settled around my chest. What was it I had uncovered? I wasn't sure, but I knew something important was hidden from me. I couldn't shake that last conversation from my mind. My uncle's warning echoed like a drumbeat as I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling. Sleep didn't come. The shadows of the room danced mockingly in the dim light. Curiosity gnawed at me, and I became convinced that whatever secrets lay buried weren't just in the past. They were waiting for me to find them. In the early morning, I slipped out of bed before the sun rose. I could hear the gentle creaking of the old house, a sound that felt familiar yet foreign. I headed back up to the attic, my heart racing with each step. Something pushed me to dig deeper. The photo haunted me. Who were those people? What happened to them? Upstairs, the attic felt different in the daylight. Rays of sunlight fell across the stacks of boxes, illuminating the dust. My mind was sharp, and I searched for anything that might connect to the photo. I started rummaging through another box, pulling out old letters and trinkets. Each item dredged up a memory, but none matched the photo. Then I found it another small box, wooden and intricately carved. I pried it open, revealing a bundle of yellowed paper. As I unfolded it, an unsettling chill crept over me. It was a family tree, but the names listed were ones I recognized from the last photo. Names I had not heard before, echoing like forgotten ghosts. But what surprised me most was the missing branches, the dead ends. My pulse quickened again. I took a closer look. Two names stood out, Samuel and Clara, alongside dates in the late 1800s. And there they were, inscribed beneath two other names, my great-great-grandparents. What had happened to them? I needed answers. As I sat processing this, I heard the soft, hesitant sound of footsteps creeping up the stairs. I froze. Who was it? My heart raced. I peered out the attic door, just in time to see my cousin, Sarah, inching forward. Her expression was tense. "Jake?" she whispered. "What are you doing up here?" I quickly tucked the family tree back into the box, suddenly aware of how vulnerable I felt. "Just looking for something," I stammered. She looked around nervously, biting her lip. "You should be careful. I heard things." Her words sent a wave of unease through me. "What do you mean?" "About the family. About our history." She hesitated, glancing over her shoulder. "They don't want to talk about it. They want it to stay hidden." "What are you talking about?" I felt a knot forming in my stomach. Just then, a loud bang resonated from below, causing us both to jump. I knew that sound. It was a door slamming, likely the back door to the house. My heart sank. Who was out there? Before I could react, Sarah grabbed my wrist. "We need to go. Now." I hesitated. The secrets I had found felt more alive than before. But the urgent look in her eyes told me I couldn't stay here. As we rushed down the stairs, I felt a fleeting sense of dread. Whatever was outside, it wasn't just the wind. Something had changed, and I was terrified of what that meant. We rushed down the next flight of stairs, my heart pounding in my chest. I could hear Sarah's quickened breaths beside me, matching the urgency of the situation. The house felt alive, as if it were listening to us. As we reached the ground floor, I caught a glimpse of movement through the kitchen window. I paused, my feet rooted to the floor. "Sarah, wait," I whispered. I peered outside. A figure stood at the edge of the property, partly hidden in the trees. It was hard to tell if it was a man or a woman, but something in their posture felt wrong. "Watching." "What is it?" Sarah asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Someone's out there," I said, pointing. Just then, I heard the door to the attic slam shut behind us. An icy chill ran through my bones. "We didn't close it," I mumbled, dread pooling deep in my stomach. "Jake, we have to move," Sarah urged, pulling me toward the side door. I felt the urge to confront whatever was out there, to demand answers about the family secrets, but the instinct to flee was stronger. We slipped through the door, ducking low against the wall. "Where do we go?" I asked, my voice barely steady. "The barn," she said. "It's behind the house. We can hide there until we figure this out." We dashed across the yard, my heartbeat thundering in my ears. As we neared the barn, I glanced back. The figure was gone. Just an eerie emptiness left in its place. Inside the barn, daylight streamed through the dusty windows, casting long shadows across the floor. It smelled of hay and old wood, a familiar scent that now felt unsettling. Sarah stood close, pressing her back against the wall, eyes darting to the door. "What happened?" I asked, panting. "What do you know?" She took a deep breath. "It's about our family. There are things they've hidden. Things I think we're better not knowing," she admitted, avoiding my gaze. "Like what?" I pressed, my curiosity outweighing my fear. "I don't know everything, but I've heard whispers about Samuel and Clara. They think their fate still lingers here." An icy shiver coursed down my spine. "Their fate?" "Yeah," she continued, eyes wide. "People in town say there was a tragedy, something they don't want to discuss. It's why the family acts weird. Why they avoid the past." My mind churned. I could feel the weight of the family tree burning in my pocket. "And what does that have to do with us?" "With now? I don't know, but..." Sarah paused. "If the things they've hidden are true, we might have put ourselves in danger." Before I could reply, the heavy barn door creaked open. A silhouette filled the entryway, blocking the light. "Sarah? Jake?" The voice sent a jolt of panic through me. It was Aunt Margaret. Had she come looking for us? Or was she part of whatever was going on? "Get down," I hissed to Sarah, as we both crouched behind a stack of hay bales, our breaths shallow and rapid. My mind raced. I needed to understand what was happening. But in that moment, everything felt uncertain. I gripped the family tree tightly. I had to uncover the truth and fast before it swallowed us whole. I held my breath as Aunt Margaret's shadow loomed in the doorway. We huddled behind the hay bales, hearts racing. I could barely hear her footsteps over the sound of my pulse in my ears. Moments stretched endlessly as I tried to make sense of things. "Jake? Sarah?" Aunt Margaret called again, her voice echoing in the barn. There was a strained quality to it, as if she was forcing calm through a storm. "What do we do?" Sarah whispered urgently, her eyes darting around the dim space. "Just stay quiet," I urged. "Don't let her find us." Aunt Margaret stepped further inside, glancing around the barn. She looked worried, scanning the shadows. I felt a wave of guilt wash over me. Was I putting her in danger by hiding? Suddenly, she stopped. Her gaze lingering on the family portraits hung low against the wall, the images of Samuel and Clara watching, eternally still. I could see her shiver despite the warm daylight spilling in. "What were you two up to?" she mumbled to herself, pacing slowly. I exchanged a glance with Sarah. The questions hung between us like an unspoken agreement. What did Aunt Margaret know? Was she truly harmless? "Why don't you just tell us what's going on?" I blurted out, surprising even myself. The words felt heavy in the air. Aunt Margaret froze. I could see her body tense. "You shouldn't be here," she said, her voice tight. "You don't understand." "What don't we understand? Tell us," I shouted, the fear boiling over. The family secrets pressed on me like a weight, demanding to be released. "Samuel and Clara's tragedy, it's more than just a story," she replied, glancing around. "It's alive. The whispers have stirred again." "Whispers?" Sarah echoed. "What do you mean?" Aunt Margaret turned sharply, her eyes wide with panic. "There are things that can't be discussed, things better left buried. If you've uncovered the past, it might want to haunt you." "What is that supposed to mean?" I felt a chill creep down my spine. Before she could respond, a loud crash echoed behind her, a heavy object tumbling over in the far corner of the barn. We all turned, startled. My heart raced again, a sense of foreboding curling in my stomach. Then I saw it. A shadow slipping behind the barrels stacked against the wall. "Did you see that?" I whispered, adrenaline flooding my veins. Aunt Margaret's face went pale. "It can't be," she stammered, backing away from the doorway. "Is someone in here?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. A heavy silence settled in the barn, the atmosphere thick with tension. "Run!" Sarah yelled, her voice cutting through the air like a knife. We scrambled to our feet, darting for the back exit. My mind raced with thoughts of what might be out there. The family secrets, the whispers, whatever. Aunt Margaret was terrified of. It all felt like it was closing in on us. As we burst into the daylight, I turned for a brief moment. Aunt Margaret remained frozen in the doorway, watching us with fear in her eyes. Then I heard it again, a low, raspy whisper drifting through the air, echoing the name we mentioned. "Samuel." That was when I knew the answers we sought were more than just stories. They were calling for us. And whatever was lurking inside the barn felt all too real. I stumbled into the bright sunlight, Sarah just ahead of me, her breath coming in quick gasps. We didn't stop running until we reached the old oak tree, its gnarled branches casting long shadows across the grass. I leaned against the trunk, trying to catch my breath while Sarah paced nervously, her eyes darting back toward the barn. "What was that?" she finally asked, her voice trembling. "Did you hear it too?" "Yeah," I replied, still feeling the fear pulsing through me. "Aunt Margaret, what did she mean by whispers? And what's alive?" I looked back at the barn, half expecting something or someone to emerge from the shadows. The weight of the secrets hung between us like a thick fog, heavy and suffocating. "Maybe we should go back," Sarah said, hesitating. She seemed scared. "There's something she's not telling us." "Are you crazy?" I shot back, frustration bubbling up again. What if that shadow was something more? What if we get caught again? We don't even know what we're dealing with. Sarah nodded, but I could see the conflict on her face. But we can't just ignore it. What if Aunt Margaret knows something important? I stared at her, the urgency gnawing at my insides. Okay, fine. But we need to figure out how to get her to talk without scaring her off. Before we could devise a plan, I heard footsteps approaching. We turned in unison, and I felt my heart drop. Aunt Margaret was walking toward us, her demeanor now calm but her expression still tense. There was something in her eyes that told me she held more than fear, she held a secret. "Jake, Sarah," she said softly, stopping a few feet from us. "I didn't mean to frighten you." "Then why did you hide the truth?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. "You said there are things better left buried." Aunt Margaret sighed, her shoulders sagging. "I've tried to protect you, to keep you away from the darkness that has lingered around this family. But it appears you can't be kept in the dark any longer." "What do you mean?" Sarah pressed. "Tell us about Samuel and Clara. Are they haunting us?" Aunt Margaret hesitated, glancing back toward the barn before stepping closer. "It's more complicated than that. The whispers, they're not just stories. They're warnings." "Warnings?" I repeated, feeling a chill. "Warnings for who?" "Warnings for all of us," she whispered. "You've awakened something that's been quiet for too long. Some truths should never be unearthed." My stomach twisted at her words, a sense of dread building within me. "But we need to know. We deserve to know why we feel this weight hanging over us." She looked at me, a mix of sorrow and fear on her face. "What you think you want to uncover may lead you deeper into darkness. I don't know if I can protect you from what's coming." "What's coming?" I pressed her, desperation creeping into my voice. Before she could answer, the air shifted. A sudden gust of wind swirled around us, rustling the leaves and carrying an echoing whisper that seemed to call out. "Samuel," my skin prickled, and I exchanged a frightened glance with Sarah. A sense of urgency enveloped us. The whispers were no longer just behind the barn. They were all around, tightening their grip on us. When I saw it, a flicker of movement near the edge of the woods. Something was watching us. And whatever it wasn't friendly. The air was thick, charged with a tension I had never felt before. I needed to shake the fear clouding my thoughts. "Aunt Margaret, we have to know what's going on," I urged, stepping closer to her. But her eyes were fixed on the woods, fear etched deep in her features. "You should both go home. Forget about this," she pleaded. But the urgency in her tone only fueled my determination. "Forget? You've just opened a door, and there's no way I'm walking away from it now," I shot back, my voice rising. Sarah, clearly uncomfortable, squeezed my arm. "Jake, maybe we should listen to her. It's not worth it if we're in danger." Aunt Margaret opened her mouth to respond, but the whisper came again, this time sharper. Samuel, like a cold hand gripping my throat. It sent a shiver down my spine. Suddenly, I couldn't wait. "We're going to the barn," I decided, turning toward the darkness looming behind us. "Wait," Aunt Margaret called, but it felt too late for caution. The pull was too strong. I stepped away from the oak, dragging Sarah with me. "Jake," she protested. "What if whatever's in there comes after us?" I paused, looking back at her. "Then we face it together. We can't let fear control us." As we approached the barn, I noticed the door slightly ajar, swinging gently as though inviting us in. The shadows inside seemed to pulse, alive as they danced across the walls. I glanced at Sarah, who bit her lip, holding onto my hand as if it were a lifeline. "Stay close," I whispered, more to reassure myself than her. Taking a deep breath, I pushed the door open wider. The scent of damp hay and something metallic wafted around us as we stepped inside. The sunlight filtered through the cracks, casting lines of brightness that barely illuminated the corners. In the far end, something glinted. "What is that?" Sarah whispered, her voice trembling. Before I could answer, I froze. There was movement again, a shadow darting across the floor, vanishing just out of sight. My heart raced as uncertainty flooded back. "I'm not sure," I admitted. "Maybe we should go back," Sarah suggested, her tone pleading. But my feet felt rooted in place, a mix of curiosity and dread pulling me deeper inside. "We can't. Not now." I took a step further, and when I saw what had caught my eye before a rusted box, half buried beneath the hay. A name was carved on its surface. Clara. The moment I touched it, I felt a jolt of energy, a whisper that seemed to rise from within. The figure loomed larger as I struggled against the grip that held me still. Panic surged within me, each heartbeat echoing like a drum. Sarah's hand went slack in mine, and I could see her wide eyes darting between me and the shadow, her breath quickening. "Jake!" she cried out, her voice shaky as she toyed with the idea of running. But in that moment, neither of us moved. It was as if dread had soaked into the very air surrounding us. "Get away from her!" I shouted, forcing out the words despite the vice-like hold on my body. But my voice wavered, drowned by an unseen power. The figure stepped closer, and I could make out features in the gloom, hollow eyes, and a mouth that twisted into a semblance of a smirk. It was as if it fed off our fear, growing bolder with each passing second. "Samuel!" the figure called, its voice low and menacing. For a moment, I thought I could see a flicker of recognition in its shadowy outline. Who was this Samuel? What connection did he have to us? Suddenly, the box I had touched before shuddered in response. I felt a wave of warmth envelop me, breaking the grip just enough for me to move. I blinked and stumbled back, dragging Sarah with me. "We need to find a way out." The shadow lunged, and a striking chill filled the barn. I could feel its cold breath on my neck, like the whisper of a forgotten warning. But just then, the rusted box rattled again, and I turned my head back toward it. Was it drawing me closer? "Maybe it's trying to help," I yelled over my shoulder. I couldn't explain why I thought that, but there was a connection, some unseen thread pulling at me. With a fierce determination, I pushed toward the box, ignoring Sarah's frantic pleas. Each step felt like I was walking through wet concrete, but I had to know what was inside. As I reached it, the lid creaked open on its own, revealing the faint glimmer of something buried deep within. "Jake! Don't!" Sarah screamed, but I was already peering inside. My breath caught in my throat. There, nestled among the shadows, was a collection of photographs, faded and brittle. I reached in, my hands trembling. The first photograph was of a woman, her face strikingly familiar. Clara. A chill ran down my spine. I remembered Aunt Margaret saying something about her. Maybe this was the key to everything. "Jake, we have to go," Sarah insisted, her voice rising in desperation. But I couldn't look away. The next image showed a group of people, smiling, standing outside a house that looked strikingly like our own. In the back, partially obscured, was the same figure that stood before us now. "Samuel," I breathed, the name tasting bitter on my tongue. Then the figure moved closer still, gliding through the darkness as if it were part of the shadows themselves. A whispered chant began to fill the barn, echoing Clara's name and twisting in the air. I felt it wrap around my chest, suffocating me. Sarah tugged at my arm, her panic infectious. "We can't stay here. You need to make a choice. Now." The box trembled in my grip, urging me toward the truth. But what was the truth? I had to decide: reach for the past and face the shadow, or run for the door and risk whatever lay beyond. Something was coming, prowling in the darkness. My heart raced as I weighed my options, fully aware that time was running out. Just as I was about to make my choice, everything went dark. The darkness enveloped me, thick and suffocating. I couldn't tell if my eyes were open or closed. All I knew was that I was frozen in place, unable to move or shout, caught in the eerie silence. Then, just as quickly, the shadows began to recede, and the barn materialized around me. But I was alone. "Sarah?" I yelled, panic gnawing at my insides. My voice echoed back, empty. The box with the photographs was gone. All that was left was a wooden floor beneath my feet and the scent of damp hay in the air. I swallowed hard, trying to calm my racing heart. Where had she gone? Had she managed to escape? "Sarah," I called again, louder this time. My voice felt small against the vastness of the barn. I took a cautious step forward, scanning the darkness for any sign of movement. Nothing. Then I remembered the figure. My stomach twisted at the thought. It had to be close. I felt exposed without Sarah beside me. I had to find her and confront whatever that thing was. With each step I took, dread washed over me, and I gritted my teeth against it. Suddenly, a sound broke the silence, a soft thud, followed by a whisper. I turned sharply toward the noise, heart pounding. Jake, it was Sarah's voice. But it was distant. I sprinted toward it, desperation fueling my movements. "Where are you?" "I'm here," she cried, but panic colored her tone. It was coming from outside the barn. The door was ajar, creaking softly as the wind nudged it. I rushed to the opening. The night sky stretched above me, stars twinkling like distant eyes. But there was no time to appreciate the view. "Sarah," I shouted again and stepped outside. My surroundings felt different now. The air was colder, sharper. "Jake, help!" Her voice came again, more frantic now. I scanned the area, but it was dark. I darted along the side of the barn and called out to her, praying she could hear me. "Over here." She sounded closer. I followed the sound until I found her near the old well, crouched low and trembling. Relief surged through me. "What's wrong?" Her eyes widened, darting over my shoulder. "The figure, it's coming." I spun around, instinctively shielding her with my body as dread gripped me once more. But there was nothing there. The stillness was unsettling. "It's seeking something," she whispered, her voice shaky. "I think it's looking for the box." "The photographs," I murmured, realization dawning. "It needs them." And then I understood. Somehow that box contained more than memories. It held secrets that tied us to Samuel and Clara. Whatever darkness lurked there, it wanted us to uncover it or maybe even keep it hidden. Suddenly, the very ground shook beneath my feet, and I heard a low growl from the shadows. I took a step back, heart racing. "We need to go," I urged, pulling her close. But the chill in the air thickened. A shadow loomed behind her. "Jake!" I turned just in time to see a dark figure emerge, stretching toward us with long, ghostly fingers. "Run!" I shouted, and we took off into the night, knowing that some secrets should have never been uncovered. We ran, hearts pounding in sync with our frantic footsteps. The barn quickly faded behind us, shadows leaking over the structure like ink spilling into water. I felt Sarah's grip tighten around my arm, and I could barely keep pace with her. The night around us grew heavier, each rustle of leaves or snap of a twig amplifying my fear. "Where do we go?" I shouted over my shoulder, a mix of urgency and panic lacing my words. I looked back, expecting to see that figure close on our heels, but it looked like we'd put some distance between us. "Just keep moving. We can't stop," she yelled back, her breath hitching. We skirted the edge of the old orchard. The trees warped and gnarled like skeletal arms reaching into the sky. My eyes scanned for anything that could help us, but it was all too familiar and dark. I heard the growling again, low and haunting. The sound sent chills coursing down my spine. What did it want? I had to come up with a plan. "We need to get to the car," I urged, my mind racing. The truck was parked farther down the gravel road. If we could reach it, we'd be safe, wouldn't we? "The car isn't safe," Sarah protested, her voice trembling. "What if it gets there first?" Her words hung heavy in the air, and guilt twisted my gut. Part of me wanted to tell her we'd be fine, but I didn't believe it. "We'll think of something, okay? Just keep running." The growl transformed into a gurgling sound behind us, so alien and unnatural that I wanted to stop and scream. I focused on the path ahead, but my mind kept wandering back to the box, the photographs, and whatever connection that entity had to us. Then I heard a crunch of leaves beneath a heavy weight. Something was coming too close. "Jake!" Sarah's voice, edged with panic, shocked me back to reality. I glanced over my shoulder. The figure was there again, moving faster now, a dark blur slipping gracefully between the trees. "It's gaining on us," I yelled. We raced forward, adrenaline surging. As I scanned the dark for anything that could provide cover, I saw a thicket up ahead, tangled branches and thick foliage. "Quick! Over there!" We veered into the brush, squeezing through the sticks and leaves. It was still and silent, but it felt like a trap. Sarah huddled next to me, her body trembling. I could barely breathe, the air thick with tension. "Do you think it saw us?" she whispered. "I don't know." I squeezed her shoulder, trying to sound braver than I felt. "We just have to stay quiet." As we crouched in the thicket, I could hear the figure moving outside, softly rustling the branches. Time passed in agonizing slowness as we listened to it draw nearer. My heart raced, every second felt like a lifetime. Then, in the stillness, I heard a strange sound. A creaking, like wood bending under pressure, followed by the faintest whisper. Sarah, Jake. A chill ran through me. It was calling our names. Jake, Sarah murmured, her eyes wide and glassy with fear. What is happening? I didn't have an answer, but that whisper sent a surge of dread through me. Something terrible was about to happen. And then everything went dark. I blinked as the darkness peeled away, revealing the familiar outline of the barn once more. It felt like stepping through a warped mirror, each detail exactly as it had been when we fled. But both Sarah and I were missing. My pulse raced as I called out for her, but my voice echoed back, empty and hollow. Sarah, I yelled, panic surging through me as a heavy silence settled. I shot a glance around, trying to grasp my surroundings. The scent of damp hay filled the air, mingling with the tang of fear. Jake, her distant voice. It rang out from behind me, just as desperate as my own. I turned quickly, my heart pounding. Rushing through the barn door, I barely caught sight of her trembling figure nearby the well. Sarah. I sprinted toward her, relishing the relief that washed over me at seeing her again. But when I reached her side, something felt off. The barn hadn't just returned. The air was different, too, thick as molasses and heavy with a sense of suffocation. What happened? I thought I started. She shook her head. I don't know. I thought I lost you, she said, tears shimmering in her eyes. The fear coursed through me anew as I scanned the shadows behind her. The whispers returned then, low and taunting, curling around us like an invisible noose. And then I saw it. A shapeless shadow looming just outside the barn door, its form flickering ominously. The growling filled the air again, a sound that rolled through my chest like distant thunder. Run! I grabbed Sarah's hand, dragging her away from the looming darkness. The fear wasn't a distant echo anymore. It pulsed with every frantic heartbeat. We scrambled through the open door and into the night air that felt like ice against our skin. As we ran, I could feel something chasing us, a dark mass barely out of sight. Where to? Sarah shouted, looking frantically around. I don't know, I gasped, the words bursting from my lips. Just keep running. We dashed into the tree line, branches scratching against our skin, disorienting us as we veered further into the woods. The moonlight cast eerie shadows, and I could hardly breathe. Why did we think uncovering the truth would be safe? I gasped through labored breaths. Her answer was cut off by a loud crash ahead. I skidded to a stop, heart hammering. What was that? I don't know, she hissed, pressing closer to me. Panic clawed at my insides as I stepped forward. The growls were now more like howls, echoing in the hollow space around us, and the trees seemed to whisper secrets lost to the wind. Then suddenly it fell quiet. The rustling stopped, and the world held its breath. Somehow that silence felt even more menacing. We need to get to the car, I urged, fear coursing through me. Fighting against the instinct to turn and run, I began to jog carefully through the underbrush, trying to keep my breathing steady. Whispers drifted through the trees again. We should have never come back, someone muttered, as if from another world. Did you hear that? Sarah whispered, gripping my arm even tighter. Yes, I replied, my voice tinged with fear. It's coming from everywhere. I could feel the ground begin to pulse beneath me, a rhythm that beat in sync with my racing heart. Shadows danced in the corner of my vision, teasing me, beckoning me to turn back. And yet I had to resist. We had come too far to succumb to fear now. Let us just keep going, I urged. We pressed on until finally we burst into a clearing. There it was, the car, parked forlornly beneath a dying streetlight. Relief washed over me like a warm tide. Just a little more, I panted, moving towards it. But when we reached the vehicle, I felt a sharp prick of anxiety. The back door swung open. It hadn't been like this when we left. What? I locked it, I murmured, my voice trembling. A low whisper swept through the air. chilling every nerve in my body. It echoed around us, distorted and clawing. "Samuel, run!" I barked, yanking the door open for Sarah, cringing at the sound of the calamitous whispers behind us. The shadows were closing in again. Just as I climbed into the driver's seat, the car jolted. I looked over to see Sarah, frozen, staring beyond. The figure from the barn loomed close, merging with the darkness. I hesitated only for a split second, then slammed my palm to the horn, the sound shrieking through the stillness. "Get in!" I shouted, fear saturating my voice as the darkness shifted. Fleeting, uncertain. Fear surged as I imagined the shadows pulling us both back into their grasp. With a burst of determination, Sarah scrambled into the passenger seat. "Drive!" she shouted, taking a quick glance back at the figure closing in. I didn't need telling twice. I turned the key, the engine roaring to life and cutting through the darkness like a knife. We tore out of the clearing, gravel crunching beneath the tires as I gripped the wheel. But the questions remained. As the farmhouse faded in the distance behind us, shadows spiraled in the rearview mirror. Would they follow? Had we truly escaped whatever had lingered there? Or was this simply the beginning of something more unpredictable, something tied deep to our bloodline, our histories? And I couldn't help but think, with hollow dread, that the past doesn't rest easily. Even as we drove away, I could still hear the faint echoes of that ominous whisper. "Samuel," I glanced at Sarah, but she was staring out the window, lost deep in thought. I could sense it. We had barely skimmed the surface of our family's past. Some doors were better left locked, but we had opened them wide. I had to wonder if the truth was as haunting as the shadows we had fled. In that chilling uncertainty, one question lingered longer than the rest: was the dark ever truly over?